Okay, well, we'll start our session off tonight in our normal way, just welcoming everyone back. We've had a number of I've received a number of interesting photos from a lot of the folks on the call here tonight, and others that can't make it tonight, in regard to what's on their workbench right now, and we'll be talking about that first off in just a moment. And from the perspective of what's on the workbench, people have really taken a good stab at the monthly challenges that John Paul's been presenting. And so I'm seeing things on how to do folds and how to do boots and shoes and how to do hands. And John's going to expand on that tonight with his monthly challenge and talk to us about how to attach arms and limbs if you want to carvings. We've talked about that before. John has maybe a slightly different method, and it'll give us a chance to see it live and ask some questions about that. We also have Mark Stobart here with us, and you've seen Mark's carvings, some really beautiful, unique carvings. He's also taken a few tutorials with oh geez, I've forgotten who. It's not Ryan Gosling, is it, Mark?
With Ryan Olson, a couple classes with him. Yeah.
Ryan Olson. Yeah, thanks. So Ryan has shown him a little bit about flat plane carving, and you can see some elements of that in Mark's carving as well. So we'll get a chance to see what Mark wants to present, and he's going to focus specifically on how to carve a face. Following that, Murray and I are going to talk a little bit about the Niagara Carving show coming up, and we're going to be there, and we'll speak a little bit to that. And then we've got a couple of items on tips and techniques and tricks that we'll touch on as well. Okay, any questions, comments on that or anything that we've covered to date? Remember, if you want to speak, you just need to hold down your space bar. Okay, let's see if we can do a screen share here. I don't know why sometimes the screen share doesn't show up, Murray. I wish it did. Hold on, I gotta play with this, I guess. Just give me a second, folks. There we go. Okay, hopefully everybody can see that. So this is our May 18th meeting. And I covered what we're going to be talking about. We'll start with what's on the workbench. Mark's going to talk about carving a face. John's going to talk about attaching arms and legs. Murray and I will talk about the Niagara Wood Carving Show, and then tips, tricks, and techniques. So let's start with what's on the bench. So I didn't see Roy on the call tonight. If I missed you, Roy, if you could speak up. So Roy sent these in, and I think they're pretty darn good.
Very good.
Yeah, aren't they? So I think you did a really nice job on this. It's
nice painting.
Really nice painting. Yeah, really nice painting. And he does a smoother carving than John, you and I are used to, but it really looks good on these particular characters, right?
Really clean.
Yeah, yeah. Anybody
good wood
have
burning
any?
too?
Yeah, yeah. Everything's really nice. Yeah, nice thin wood burning as well, and really looks smart. Anybody else have any comments? Just hit your space bar and speak up. Roy did some of your hands, John, so you might want to comment on these.
Very good. Yeah, they're a lot of fun. Just to focus on a lot of things. A lot of people don't really focus on hands a lot. just usually put in like little twigs. But once you focus on it, you can. It's part of the carving. It's a little carving. They're very good.
Mm-hmm. I like the way he did this here.
Yeah.
Sometimes when the only way to show the knuckles, of course, is to make little valleys around the knuckles. And when I get to this point and doing a hand, I picture a point right here that radiates outward between the individual knuckles or between the finger cuts, if you want. And with a pencil, I'll just make those lines in from between the fingers down to this little point here, between that finger down to this little point here, and then I'll carve that out either with a knife or a small gouge. But Roy's done a really nice job of showing that. You rarely don't see that in a hand that somebody's carved. He's done a really nice job of that. And a little bit of a fortune teller here. He's got the lines in the palm up there. Really nice hands.
That's a real good focus on detail.
Yeah. Now, Murray, you've got a little bit of a story on this one.
Oh, that's nice.
Through our website, we received a request for me to find for a movie that they're going to make, to find a wood carver that was Chinese, that was in his early 70s, and that he would be able to speak Mandarin. Well, they fell short on that, but they found a Chinese man, but he was not a wood carver. So we provided them the wood carvings for the movie. And these are lotus flowers that I carved for the movie. The one on the right-hand side is the finished product. The one on the left-hand side is finished. But in the movie, what happens is this grandfather, the older man that is the wood carver, has his grandson with him. And the grandson doesn't really appreciate his heritage. And with the place he lives in southwestern Ontario, he's kind of struggling with everything. But he sees Grandpa carve the one on the left-hand side, as well as the one on the right too, but he picks the one up on the left-hand side, and I had to make this carving so it would fall apart when he touched it. Literally, it would explode. That was an adventure. So this thing is just mounted there, just carefully put together. The minute you touch it, all of the petals fall off the lotus flower. And of course, the story goes on from there. One thing that Grandpa does in the movie, he picks up the small bird that I carved. It's like a comfort bird, only with a bit more detail. And when he has the comfort bird in his hand, with the animation they put into the movie, the bird flies out of his hand, flies around the room, and comes back and lands in his hand again. I'm apparently going to get an invitation to go to the screening of it. So it's going to be interesting, but it's all in Mandarin. I speak Cantonese, but I can't get Mandarin as fast enough. So that's part of the story behind it.
You going to do a little cameo appearance in the movie at all, or?
I think they're going to give me credit, Murray Lincoln, at the end, but it's one of those things that rolls by in a couple of seconds. So it was quite an adventure, a whole new group of people. And when I delivered the products to them, the carvings, we went to a Chinese restaurant that had a very interesting name to it alone, but something as the Chinese folk know, some of the better restaurants. And so we were fed an unbelievable meal, and that was worth it all.
I guess so. It's a nice carving, real nice carving.
Hopefully I'm going to have one on the right-hand side, maybe the left-hand side at the Niagara show too.
Oh, good. I'll just quickly mention that we've had a couple or three people join since we started to the Zoom call here. So we have everyone on mute. If you have anything you'd like to say or any comments you have on anything you see here, just press the space bar on your computer or iPad, and that'll unmute you as long as you hold that down. Now, Murray, you did. I should actually show this one first, I think, Murray.
Yeah, just a carving that I'm doing right now. It's on the workbench. Get shoved aside carving lotuses. Anyway, there's a baseball pitcher. He's staring down the batter, and it's for Jean Paul. This is my example of hands and holding the ball in his left hand and the glove in the right. It is
very good.
It's just one finger in the glove. You'll see in the next picture.
Now, is this your pattern, Murray, or did you borrow it from someone?
it have a book that somebody has carved these caricatures. So I use the positions and the stance, but they're all my carvings. And it just changes. That is not the middle finger, but the forefinger. And the fun was making the baseball round with a hand holding it and be able to see
great job.
baseball. And so that part of it was kind of a challenge to anytime it's a challenge to make something round. And the baseball came out in the hands, worked out pretty good on that side.
Yeah, Murray, I think this is outstanding.
Yeah.
This hand holding that ball is outstanding. Nothing short of outstanding. That is really, really well done.
Split finger fastball.
Yeah, really. It's just beautifully done. I know you're going to come in and do some wood burning so that you see all those fingers, but the way you did that was just beautiful. When I look at this one here, if you're looking for a couple of suggestions, I would dig this a little bit deeper into the mitt so you have a more of a rounder finger there.
It worked out a little bit, but I was being very careful until I get some of it's finished. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. On this here, as I look at this, I think this is going to be your masterpiece. The way he's positioned there is absolutely perfect in my mind. I think that's going to be a real smart looking carving. And I know that you've done baseball gloves before that look real, a carved baseball glove that looks like a real glove. Again, I'd go a little bit deeper along your burned line so that you have a nice rounded finger on each one. But I'd put everything you got into this carving, because what you've got started here, I think it's going to be a real masterpiece.
One thing to explain there, the head is mounted; it's carved separately and then mounted into the body. And the right arm also is separate.
Oh yeah, good.
As well as the hat.
Yeah.
And I did that especially for the first baseball player, or the first pitcher I did. It was very difficult to get the expression on the face the way I wanted it when the hat was carved on it.
Yeah, yeah.
And this you can't see it too good in the picture, but he's got a glare on his eyes in his face looking at the pitcher.
Well done.
Thank you.
Any comments or questions for Murray?
I think you should sign him up. The Jays could use a good pitcher.
I like it.
One thing that's happening now is that as I have placed them on the social media, and I'm getting orders for certain teams' names to be on the shirt that they want me to carve one of these things. And so right now I've kind of buried myself in orders.
No, that's a good thing. Okay, Roger, I know you're on the line. You've got a couple of slides here.
Yeah, these are things I was playing with. The one on the left is actually going to probably end up in the gas bucket because I just don't like the way it looks. The one on the right was an attempt I'm going to visit a friend in Quebec City later this year, and I wanted to give him a present. He was in the Bandu infantry regiment, so I carved that, and the beret is actually separate. And
nice.
So they were a lot of fun. I've just got to do some touching up on the Bandu head.
Mm-hmm. No, I think they look really good. I wouldn't throw this one out, Roger. I'd keep working at it. If you wanted to make a modification, maybe carve this section away here and just make that mouth wider, almost to from edge to edge here.
Yeah.
But I'd keep working on that. That's not a bad carving. That's a good carving.
And this one is a carving. I saw it on Pinterest, and it was one of those things that says the whole story without any writing or whatnot. So I made an attempt at it. The hat, the soldier's hat or cavalry hat is the brim bent back, and it's carved in two pieces. One is obviously the crown, and then the head is willow, and the body, the upper part of the body, is butternut. So I had a lot of fun with those three different pieces of wood. I think willow is a beautiful wood to carve. It's it's a finer wood than cottonwood. It doesn't split as easily. So it was a lot of fun. It's very light. And so that's ready to be touched up, and then I'll start painting.
Nice.
Yeah, another nice little carving. I like what you did with the scarf. The fact that the scarf goes down below the or the handkerchief, the kerchief goes below the bust, makes it look really smart. Any questions or comments for Roger? Bob, you're on the line. You did a number of hands.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm just experimenting. The middle hand there wasn't quite in proportion, so I lengthened the fingers by carving them down a little bit into the palm. So it shortened the palm and lengthened the fingers, but it was fun doing it.
Really nice. Really good job.
Yeah, this view here really looks
That was
great.
really good.
Yeah, this view really looks great. You know, to do a hand that has, you know, the stepwise, just like your hand goes if you're gripping on something, right? That's really smart. This is very realistic looking too. The way you've got, you know, that each finger is slightly different. One of the things that that I would notice on this one here, you know, because we're all playing with these things, is when you hold your hand like that and you look at the thumb, it's not, the thumb isn't that fat from the tip down to the palm, is it? There's kind of a break on a knuckle and then a little bit section, and then it's rounded out behind that. So that might be something that would improve this one. But I think these are great. Rarely do I put fingernails in a hand, but this looks really good. Sorry, John, I cut you off.
Yeah, the thumb on that one could be a little bit longer. I was looking at my hand.
Yeah.
And the thumb would be a little bit longer now. It's really good though. Really
Oh, it's
good.
yeah, really fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah, this was just something I did, just a tramp. Then I painted. I got a good color of paint, I think, and it sort of was a faded looking and with a rope belt.
Really nice.
Nice paint job.
Thank you. Yeah, this was just a Viking. I started a couple of weeks ago, but we had visitors, so I had to put that aside and haven't started back to it yet.
Yeah. I should get back to it, Bob. You know, I sent you a little email. I didn't know whether you saw it or not. But you know, we've talked. I know John's talked about it. I think I mentioned it too. Is put that center line with a pencil, and put another center line on the side, and carve between those two center lines so that they're, because you know, as you look along here, you can see that's still pretty flat. I know you're still carving at it, but if you went a little bit deeper here on the belt, as an example, top and bottom, if you went a little bit deeper, and then carved from that center line right to this center line, by default, it becomes very round. And so it might be something you want to practice on this, because you're still at that stage here.
Okay.
Any comments for Bob? Any questions?
Bob, just a suggestion from myself doing something like this with these pieces added to the carving. It probably, the sword would be easier to carve if it's not attached to the body, but then you work on the hand. One of those hands that you did earlier would fit perfectly around the hilt and making that fit. The same with the shield. The shield, probably the weight of the shield, if that's not hollowed out, is going to tip the guy over in real life.
True. I might be able to hollow out the back of the shield, make it a little.
Mm-hmm.
I would, my suggestion, Bob, was just take your time on the detail. You're rushing the detail. I would rough that out a little bit more. Like, get the roundness first, then worry about detail. But you're jumping the gun with the detail a little yet. Just wait before you put the detail in. Then once you got the full roundness of the body, then you start putting the detail in.
Okay, thank you.
Looks good.
Looks really good.
Wayne Smith. Who is Wayne Smith? Go ahead,
Excellent
Wayne.
hands.
That's the hand of a guy that's worked with his hands all of his life.
That's right. That's right. That's really good.
This one here, I done that just to aggravate John Paul a little bit. I told him I was going to start carving nothing but pirates because their hands were a lot easier to carve. And
that's really good.
that wood cutting tool you see above them, that is what I do 95% of my work with. That one right there. That's the favored one. Yep.
Wow. Yeah.
I even carve, even on my South Shore rednecks, I use that knife to carve the eyes with. So.
Do you bother sharpening the blade, or do you just replace it?
Oh yes, yeah.
Oh, you don't just replace it with a new blade?
No, I'm too mean. But no, seriously, I hone them. You saw the video I had of my honing machine. I use that on that all the time. But what I found about them, two things I found about them. Usually when you pay more money for something, you get a better quality. I have found that the cheaper utility replacement blades seem to be better. They're more flexible and stuff, so which is a good thing. But the other thing is, after you hone them just so many times, apparently the good steel in one of those utility blades only is perhaps the first eighth of an inch, if it's that. And once you tend to sharpen and hone down past that, you cannot keep an edge on it. Just one cut and it's gone again. So yeah, but usually I can carve a whole South Shore redneck with one blade without replacing. Yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Nice hands too. We're joking around, but this is a real nice looking hand. I mean, that looks like a hand to me. So good job.
I should have had a few scars on the knuckles.
I don't know if Jacques on the line tonight. So Jacques is, I think he's been with us a couple of months now, and he sent this one in, and he did a really nice job, John.
Very nice job.
Yeah.
I don't know what kind of wood that is.
Yeah, I wonder myself. It's certainly not basswood, is it? But yeah, nice job.
Very nice.
You know, to get this, finger and thumb together, that's not trivial. You did a nice job on that. I'm pausing here in case anybody wants to make a comment or question. So jump in at any time. Karen, you're on the line tonight. Maybe not. So Karen sent in this one. I think it's a terrific carving.
Nice painting too, again.
Very
clean.
But you can see, the whole notion of the hands are really well done, I think. She added a few pieces like the nail. Likely the hammer is added, and to Murray's earlier point, it looks like she carved the hand and then added the hammer. Kind of an interesting, such a large head on a body. It kind of looks really interesting to me. So really good job. Harvey, you're on the line tonight. Harvey, you just need to push down that space bar to speak.
I'm here. I got a form, and it was probably about 20 years old. Somebody had died. Very hard to work with, basswood. It's very hard to start with. And I just played around with it, and that's what I found out.
Is this the mountain in the background here?
It's supposed to be the mountain, yes.
Yeah, that's good.
And the tree is different. The tree I actually found from Trainer. There's a model Trainer.
Oh, yeah.
And actually it is a dowel, and then furnace filter. that they cut, and then they put it on the pole on the dowel.
A furnace filter. Say more about that.
Well, it's you cut the furnace filter to shape it sort of like a tree, and you put it on the dowel, then you paint it.
Well,
I haven't quite figured out all the ins and outs of it, but it's rather an interesting concept.
it is, yeah.
How did you do the grass there?
The grass, that
Yeah.
that is glue, as well as wood shavings and paint, all mixed up.
Ah, I saw something where it was like it was water, and it was toilet paper, glue, and water, and that's how they made the waves. I was just curious. Very cool.
It's a bit hard to get the rifle OWCA in the hands, but I figured it out after a while, and the hands are separate. And I used the dowel method that John Paul suggests, and it works really well.
Yeah.
Very nice, Harvey.
Yeah, nice profile.
Yeah, yeah. Any other comments or questions for Harvey? Hey, Sue.
Hi.
Hi, Sue.
Yeah, these are just some little fishermen that I did from some basswood pieces. They're about 1 1/4 by about 5 inches high, and finally got them all painted. And I was sitting out in the backyard, and I was looking over towards the garden bench. It's an old one, as you can see by the background. And that birdhouse just happened to be sitting there, and I thought, a good spot to take a picture of those fishermen. So I put them in there, or put them beside it, and took a few shots. So that's that one. And I thought what I would do after that is I've got 2 more fishermen that are now all carved. I just have to paint them. And I've got one that has a few more details than some of the other ones. So I hope to get that done in the next week.
Those are
But
really nice.
they're fun to carve. I mean, they're good fill in. Yeah.
Those are nice.
And these guys here, the little hiker on the left, again, he was something that the more I carved it, the worse it got. And so the only thing I couldn't really save was this little beanie there. You can see most beanies don't have a peak, but this one was, it started out with a flat cap, and it was really not the shape I was going for. And the more I tried to fix it, the worse I made it. And so anyway, that's what happened there. But I did put some hands on them. There's certainly nothing compared to the ones we've seen tonight. I'm going to have to get on the ball with that. And yeah, but anyway, at least they're not in his pockets for a change. So that's a bit of a step.
Yeah,
I guess.
that's right. No, that looks good.
Yeah.
Tell us about that lion.
The right there, yeah, he's obviously not a caricature, but more of a stylized lion. And he was my entry into the Quinty show. I forgot to put it on last month's show and tell. And so anyway, he was another one that sat around a long time unfinished, which I don't recommend. I learned a lot by doing that, leaving it too long, because I had a really hard time picking back up and getting the rhythm going of those teeth. Like the 2 that are on our left as we're viewing it, the big, like the fangs, the upper and the lower, on their own, they look pretty good. But to the other side, as I said, I just had a really hard time picking up that rhythm to get it going after all that time. And and that what you see on the main is main number 3. It's been on and off twice prior to that, and I had to stop because things were getting a little too thin, which means the actual face protruded forward too much. But anyways, it was fun. I learned a lot. I did them with just one coat of Odie's oil was enough to do it. I thought I was going to have to do a few, but I was happy with the way it turned out.
Turned out beautifully.
Is that basswood?
It is. It is. Yeah.
Nice.
It's about, I would say that the carving itself, I'm not in my shop right now, but it is about 10 inches high. Yeah. So, yeah.
Very nice.
It was fun. Nice. Thank you.
Larry, I think you came on the line.
Yeah, good evening. Yeah, I did these hands because I wanted to try practicing different hands already and holding things and that. And the other ones only have 3 fingers, but that's because they're for a gnome. I have a tree out the back here that I've set up as a gnome house for my grandkids, and set up a gnome and a little treasure box and all kinds of different things. And so you hide the hands and then the feet and everything else. So it's all coming out of different parts underneath the tree. So you don't really need the whole gnome. And then I did these hands, and I thought, well, if I'm going to do them anyway, I use them as a business card holders. And I made a little wood burning with the trees and that just to add to it, and that just made up a little stand underneath it. But yeah, it gave me a good appreciation for the hands, because it's like the eyes, and what do you look at when you first look at a caricature is when he's grabbing something, does it look like a real hand, like with the wrinkles and different things and the clothes. So it was I'm really glad we John Paul, we had this challenge in that, and yeah, I enjoyed it. And yeah, there's a lot goes into a hand, but it's kind of neat where you do, like you were saying, the lines divide, like where you go up the hand and then the knuckles and then onto the fingers, and then you divide it from that point. But if you do all those basic steps first, then it makes it look like a hand. And yeah, anyway, it was a little bit of a challenge, but yeah, I enjoyed doing it.
Right on. It looks good. Very good.
Really nice.
Looks like tattoos on his arm.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's what I thought about too, actually. After that, everybody and their brothers got a tattoos of these trees, and it goes right with it, doesn't it?
The sleeve.
Yeah, that's right.
Real nice.
Thank you.
Any comments or questions for Larry? Craig.
Yes, I'm here.
Good.
Yeah, I just did the a fist sort of thing. I made the thumb a little bit too small, but that's how my thumb is, because I cut the end off a few years ago, so I copied it pretty close. And I made I just used a broom handle for my holder, and made 2 or 3 of them, and the broom is much smaller now, and you have to bend over that broom now. It's a bit shorter.
Yeah, don't hurt your back with that broom.
So how'd you like using the handle?
Oh, this was really small. I don't know how long. I wanted to make it small because we're doing caricatures, and I wanted to get it close to what I'm going to be doing in the future. So I made it really small. The handle then is perfect because I held on to it and carved the whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What size screw did you use? What size screw did you use? A 6 or 8?
I think I used a 6 or an 8. I can't remember. I think it was a 6.
Yeah, I made some up with 6s and 8s.
Yeah.
For the smaller stuff, I use a 6.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And
well done.
There's somebody in the one of the carving clubs, and she's carving little Christmas ornaments, and I showed her mine, and I'm going to make her one too. I don't know how she does it. She holds the whole little thing in her hand and tries to carve it. So yeah, that's a great idea, and it works out good.
Perfect.
I got to buy my wife a new broom now, but it's
yeah.
That's the right size for her now.
Yeah. Good job, Craig.
Thanks.
Lee, you want to say, you got a couple slides here. You want to say a couple words on these?
Yeah. So I carved this guy the last little while. And then it's the head and the body are separate, and I don't know. He kind of looks like the Ricky, the construction guy that I did before, except for he's going out on the town for the night. And it's tried to do the shoes with a little bit more detail, with the patch of green, and yeah. So that's just this guy's this month's one, and then I did the hands as well, and then those. That was actually a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun carving these. And then
Have I cut out or is Lee cut out?
I like the watch and the ring.
Yeah, it's really nice. Eh?
Excellent job.
yeah, yeah.
Oh.
That's
Good job, Lee.
thank you.
Okay, thanks everybody for sending in some really interesting photos of your carvings. You know, John, Paul, and I are seeing improvement in everyone's carvings, and it's nice to see. I can't wait for our next show and competition. I think it's going to be pretty tough judging those carvings.
For sure.
Okay, are there any questions or comments anybody wants to make on any of the carvings they saw? Okay, so let's move on. Mark's going to talk to us about carving a face, his carvings and carving a face. Now, Mark, are you going to be doing a share screen, or are you just going to be doing it off your video feed like that?
Yeah, I was thinking about that. I would just kind of talk a little bit about how I got into carving and show some of my carvings, and then some of the pointers that I found that have been helpful for me over the time. And then I thought that it would leave some time for Q&A in case people wanted to ask any questions. So
perfect. That's all yours.
Perfect.
Thanks, Mark.
okay. So hi everyone. I'm Mark Stobart. If you don't know me, I'm from Winnipeg, Manitoba. Born and raised, you know, and how I got into carving. I wasn't into carving when I was a kid. I did the extent of my carving as a kid was essentially doing whittling ends of sticks into points for marshmallows, essentially. And you know, I started getting into more of this side of carving back in 2015. And it was following a really bad car accident, actually, of that I was in with my wife, and we both got concussions from it. And so I was trying to find a hobby that would keep me away from screens and watching TV and movies and being on my phone. So I started picking up drawing and sketching again, and that's something that I did when I was younger quite a bit. So I started getting into sketching again. And then that Christmas, I thought, you know, I'm trying to get into different hobbies. So I asked for a little whittling knife for Christmas that year, and you know, I got it, and pretty much haven't put it down since. So I really got into it in kind of the January 2016 timeframe. And I started by doing some YouTube videos, and at that time, you know, there wasn't too much, but Lino Daughtry was had his Vimeo account, and I religiously watched that pretty much every lunch hour at work. And I was watching Sharon My Art also on YouTube, and she did the little tutorials for these little guys that kind of come from Jack Price, I understand, too. He did a lot of these little guys. So this guy here was my fourth carving that I got into. So I got into doing a bunch of these, but as you can see, he doesn't have a face on there. And the more I looked at different carvings, I found that I was really naturally drawn to the face right away. And I think it kind of makes sense because, you know, as people, there's so much emotion and expression that comes from our face in general. That's one of the first things that we notice when we see a carving or we see a piece of art. We're drawn to the face right away because that really tells a story in of itself. So I really wanted to focus on improving and learning how to carve a face. And to be honest, I haven't really stopped carving faces. That's pretty much the main thing that I've been doing. So I kind of do faces and busts a little bit more. And I thought that I would just kind of show some of the carvings that I have, talk about some of the points that have helped. And I kind of jotted down some bullet points here. So, sorry if it's a little bit disjointed, but I thought I would kind of just go through some of my notes. So I found drawing really helped me in really starting to look into anatomy of the face a little bit more and to learn some of the key proportions and of the face and kind of the main markers of the face. And then I found that once I kind of had those held in my head, I could use them as guidelines, but not the primary way to actually carve a face. So I have kind of a general way that I start, but I don't have a strict rule for how I go about it. So for example, and I'm sure a lot of you have heard this, in order to get good depth to your face, you need to start thinking about how to lay out the foundation. Don't put details on too soon before you block in the main shapes ultimately. And the way that I kind of thought about it is, of course, this is a subtractive art. So you need to think about what layer comes first, and you kind of slowly remove material as you go. So when it comes to the face, the first thing that I pay attention to is that 90-degree angle from the tip of the nose to your cheekbones. So if you make that 90 degrees from your nose to there, it's going to intersect essentially approximately with your cheekbones. And again, these are general rules. So I start by creating that peak on the face. And then the next thing I think about is from the side view, the shapes. So there's the slope back from the tip of the nose to the top of your head, essentially. And maybe what I'll do is I'll just point my camera, I'll flip it around, I'll point it down, and I've got some sketches that I can kind of show some of these points to, if that works for everyone. Okay, give me a second here. Okay. Okay. So like I was talking about, this is from a top view of the head. So this is at 90-degree angle that I was talking about for the tip of the nose. So if you want to get good depth to your face, this is really important to start with. So I kind of put dashed lines here, and this kind of represents a block of wood. You could think about it. So the first thing that you can cut are these 90 degrees to this point. And then from there, I also want to keep the ear boxes onto the side to make sure that I have enough wood on each side. So I start with that 90 degrees, and then I can start shaping it backwards, making sure I have enough of this ear box as well. And for me, the trick is to go nice and slow, making sure that I leave enough wood for everything. Because I found that some of my early carvings, I didn't plan that out. I didn't plan the ears, and I found that it was, I would make a lot of mistakes for it. So 90 degrees is very important, leaving room for the ear boxes. And then the next thing I try to focus on is the brow line, ultimately. And I'm not sure how I can show that. So maybe what I can do is actually just kind of show some of my carvings here. So this guy here, you can see that from the top side, I really focused on that 90 degrees from the nose to the cheekbone. And then from the side here, making sure I've got a good slope from the nose to the forehead. And then after I get those main cuts in, I focus on establishing my brow line for there. And then going in and adding a little bit of detail as I go. So it's a slow process ultimately for me. Sorry, I wish I kind of had us a little bit more prepared.
No, this is going really well, Mark. We're following you completely. I'm kind of interested on, you have the lower face on the carving you just showed is really large, like he has a double chin. How did you plan for that? Did you start off with that plan in mind?
Well, I actually had the idea. So this was based off of a sketch that I did. Actually, this sketch here was kind of my starting point. So I like to draw a lot. And actually, I would really recommend, keeping a little notepad by you, doodle, draw, and I'll kind of show a quick way to to draw a face where you can start to practice and play around with expressions. So this was the original sketch, and then this was kind of the guy that it came to. So it was kind of planned, but ultimately, when I start carving, I don't have it's really difficult ultimately to carve exactly what you draw or carve exactly what you're wanting to. So I try to get rid of that expectation. I find that if I really try to force a carving, that's when I end up not liking it, or it doesn't turn out the way that I like. So I like to just kind of play it by ear and kind of, like I said, go from top layer to more and more depth. So like the nose sticks out the furthest. So that's the first thing I kind of focus on and get these main planes for the face, making sure I leave enough room for the ears. And then I slowly develop it as I go. Here's one that I was just starting to work on yesterday. So you can see the ears are quite boxy. There's a lot of wood there. I tried to get the 90-degree bend from the nose to the cheekbones, and I'm trying some different techniques on this one too, especially with the eyes itself. So I'm not sure how it's going to turn out, but you can see kind of at this chin, if I wanted to, I could essentially, to do that double chin, kind of draw, say, the base of the chin could be here, and then start to do curl cuts from there down to start developing that side profile to get that double chin in there, if that makes sense. Let's see. Yeah, so for me, I actually didn't take a carving class for quite a few years. I was worried that if I took too many classes, I would develop the person style that I was taking the class with more. And I was really wanting to kind of develop my own style and carve the things that I found were interesting. So that's one of the reasons why I kind of stayed away from it for a while until I kind of developed some of these foundations. And that was for me. It's not necessarily for everybody, but I focus a lot on trying to learn how to draw, and I actually found it quite cyclical. So the more I carved and the more I learned about facial anatomy, the better my drawings got, and the better my drawings got, the better my carvings got. Because I think ultimately what we're doing as carvers is trying to develop our internal eye. So how well can we picture these 3D forms? And I actually have a hard time with drawing, so I actually think I'm a better carver than I am a drawer, actually, in the end. So maybe what I'll do this was actually the first face I ever carved. I actually didn't understand wood grain at this time. So the wood grain is actually coming through this way instead of going vertically. So it's kind of a mess. And here's some of the other ones that my first early attempts. Ultimately, you can see they're extremely rough, really rough, and then they slowly start to improve over time. But I think if I can provide one really big tip that really helped me is don't rush your carvings. Really take your time. Try to learn something new on every single one, and don't pressure yourself to complete as many carvings as possible. I think it's important to be really mindful with your carvings ultimately, because I think we can get stuck in trying to produce as many as we can to get them out the door. But I think really what I've learned the most off of is taking my time, and the carvings that I absolutely hate or they're not looking good, I'll really take my time on them and kind of stick with it. And ultimately they turn out to be carvings that I really, really like. So for example, this one here, I was absolutely hating how it was looking. It was different from how I was doing my faces previously, but just slowly sticking with it, and just really trying to develop those forms into the face. And ultimately, it's one of my favorite carvings in the end.
Very nice.
Yeah. So are there any questions or that I could maybe cover at this time?
I don't want to monopolize the questioning, but I really like the way you do the mouth. I like the way that you form the lower lip in particular.
Yeah, thanks. It's so actually it's kind of what I'll do is I'll show, and it's always kind of a little different.
You might want to just hold that a little closer to the paper and it'll be in better focus, I think. There you go.
Okay, thank you. So you can see the lip on this one. It's really pronounced. And then this guy here, it's still kind of the three cuts. So one directly underneath of the lip diagonally, and then on the sides as well. But I tried to not have these outside portions as pronounced as this one. But then on this guy, I did the mouth slightly different there. So it was essentially so I pretty much do all my carving with just this guy too. I tend to stay away from gouges. I use some gouges, like on the neck on this guy. I used it, but the majority I like to use the knife, and that has really actually influenced my style overall. But on this piece, it was just essentially one straight downwards diagonal cut and then rolling it from side to side that way, and then an up cut to relieve it to get that look, and then using the knife at these corners as a sweep cut to kind of round that inside corner.
So Mark, you make the mound from the nostril to kind of the lower lip before you make that lower lip cut, and then you add the mouth later with a few cuts?
Yeah, so on this guy here, he's a little bit more preliminary. So I'd really like to try to focus on the main planes, because I think if you have a good foundation for your carvings, then the details really just make it pop. Because I think our especially when it comes to the human face, our mind is so primed for it. That's one of the first things as babies, we're attracted to the human face. So I think that if we get the foundation, the planes and proportions right, then it really attracts the eye ultimately. So when it comes to this mound, what I was trying to do was essentially three main cuts. So, there's the one in the front, and then these two side ones. And you can really see that on some of the flat plane carvings. So this was from Ryan Olson's class here. But it's kind of interesting. Like I kind of start with flat plane. And then depending on the look I'm going for or the shape or how the carving's going, it gets refined a little bit more and more as I go. And with flat plane, it's just going a little bit deeper. So maybe I can show a couple. So like for this guy, for instance, there's the plane here and then the plane and the side plane. So there's kind of those three main planes. And then you can keep refining that more and more. So like if I wanted to do a deeper lip on this guy, I would, where's the camera? There it is. So I would essentially draw a line here, do a cut down in at a diagonal and relieve up to it. And then do kind of the same thing at the sides.
Thanks, Mark. I like that.
Yeah.
One thing I was just going to mention, that you make your noses really good because they don't stick out from the face. They actually go back into the face on the sides, and that so then it makes the nose look real because how it goes into the face a bit on the in there. Yeah, looks really good. Makes it look real.
Thank you. Yeah, and that's one of the things. So I found with carving, the way that I like to think about it is we're essentially creating shadows for everything, because that's how we get the depth in our carvings, and that's where you can create the interest. And that's comparing that to drawing. That's kind of like the line weight in drawing or shading in drawings. So I really try to focus on, like I really wanted to get a nice shadow right in that portion. So that's something that I'll come back to my carvings and refine it kind of as I go. So, do a little bit deeper cut there, or, even on some of the collars of the shirt, I wanted to get a deeper shadow in there or underneath the collar. Not as much on that guy. Yeah, actually on this guy here. So even though I didn't put too much depth onto the collar, I tried to undercut underneath the collar to create a bit more of a shadow on this portion. And I'm not that big into painting ultimately. I'm not very good at it, and that's kind of the way that I've stayed away from it. I always worry I'm going to ruin my carvings when I do. But if I was better at it, what I would try to do is the areas where I wanted to get a little bit more shadow, I could add or accentuate that through the painting process. And that's something that I'm starting to think about and starting to try to play with a little bit. Yeah. So with each of my carvings, like I was kind of saying before, take your time with each one and really try to learn something off of each carving. All said and done, even though I've been carving since about 2016, I probably have about 55 carvings, I think I figured in total. So I really take my time with each one, and each one is a study ultimately. So I try to learn something new on each one. I might I like this guy, he looks really good, but actually being a critic of your own work within reason can be really beneficial, I think. Because one thing that I don't like about this guy is I find that it's not deep enough here. So his face actually looks kind of flat to me. From the front view, I like it. I like the expression, but ultimately I found that I made the proportion based off of this block of wood a little bit too big, and I didn't pay attention to how deep this portion is. So I didn't have much wood front to back to play with. So I find that when I look at this guy from different angles, like from here, it looks too flat, for instance. So from the front, it looks like there's good volume. But from other angles, there's some that I don't like. So it's those types of aspects that I try to pay attention to and then apply to the next. And then in terms of eyes, I like to try to play around with the different ways that I create the eyes and try to get different expressions off of them. So you can see I put more effort into these eyes, a little bit wider. And then these ones, I tried to be a little bit more suggestive with the eyes just to create the shadow. So I didn't actually carve an eyeball or carve too much depth or try to make it round, but I tried to add a shadow in the corner and also right underneath the eyelid just to try to give that appearance of the eye instead. So yeah, that's kind of all that I had. I was just going to kind of talk about things, but I want to make sure if anybody has questions or about how I approach certain things, I'd be more than happy to talk about it.
Mark, how do you do your buttons?
So on this one, it might be kind of hard to see. It's so I draw a circle onto it. So maybe what I can do, so I kind of draw a circle on the wood. And then what I started doing is I took my knife and scored this line straight down into the wood itself. And then I started to do little sweep cuts. So this was the knife that I used for this one. So right here, I kind of started going this way, and then I just swooped up to relieve up to the score line that I did for the button. And I did that at different points. For this guy here, what I did, I scored it around, and then I kind of came in at an angle. So I kind of swooped that way, and then I would come back down to that line, almost like doing a chip cut in that corner. And then I did that at different corners there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was wondering if you follow the same direction every time. Like, do you go from the bottom up or top down, or do you vary it around? What's the flow of the carving you're trying to do?
Yeah, great question. So when I'm carving the face, I start with shaping the wood, because my main focus for this guy was the face itself. Like I wasn't doing a full figure. If I was doing a full figure, I would try to block in all the main aspects of it first. So making sure I have enough wood for the head, the arms, the feet, the body, trying to get the general gesture of the carving before going back and getting the details. But when I'm carving the face, this was, I'm not sure what this was off of, probably a 1x1 or 1.5 by 1.5 piece. So I kind of I start by shaping it, getting this shape ultimately. I guess what I do is I start by creating almost a dowel shape. So I carve it in the round, I smooth it out all the way around. And then at the top of the carving, so what do I do? So if this is the top of the block, I draw a line from corner to corner like this, and it will give you the approximate center of your block, because I do all my cutting by hand with a saw, so it's never perfect. So I like to try to start by finding the center, and then from there, I'll create a dowel out of it. And then from that dowel, then I have my center line like this. What I'll do is then from this part, I'll carve my 90-degree bends from there. And then I'll make sure I have enough room for my ear blocks built in there. and then I'll remove this wood here. So I get kind of this general shape from the top. So then I have my ear blocks, my 90 degrees. And then from there, I start shaping, going back at the 90s. So if you can picture, this is my block of wood. I've created this as a dowel. And then I decide I want to put where my nose is. And then I start shaping it up, cutting in underneath the nose and starting to form from there. I'm not sure if that answered. But like I said, I try to hold the general landmarks in my head and not necessarily follow the same steps. So, at the very beginning, I follow those first ones. So doing the dowel shape, getting the general layout. But then after that, that's kind of where it stops. And it's different almost every time when I carve. So this guy, I actually started doing this one. I was trying to take a lot of detailed pictures so I could share it for this to kind of show a general process. Well, once I got going, it kind of all went out the window because it wasn't working for me. It wasn't laying out properly. I didn't like the look of it. So then that's when I started going rogue, and I just start, carving away and just trying to get the general flow or feel for it. So I started the same way, kind of doing a dowel shape, making sure I've got spots for the ear boxes, cutting up, cutting underneath, forming where the nose is, cutting that back angle. But I didn't like how the eyes were coming, so I kept carving off the eyes. But that actually is starting to turn out pretty good for me because I like how the eyes are actually set back a little bit further than where the mouth mound is, where some of my early carvings, you'll see the eyes and the mouth mound don't quite look right from that side profile view. So I actually kind of like the look when the eyes are set back a little bit. But that was kind of a happy accident for me because as I came across that when, I didn't like the eyes. So I kept carving it off and carving it back a little bit. And then it looked pretty good to me.
Okay, any other questions for Mark tonight? Mark, that was just a terrific presentation. I'm a big admirer of your carvings, and man, you didn't disappoint at all. You did a real nice job tonight.
Really nice job. Thank you.
Great. Yeah, thanks. Sorry if it was a little bit disorganized, but maybe next time I can come a little bit more prepared.
It worked.
Well, yeah, I wasn't disorganized at all, and you're definitely going to get another chance. We're going to bring you back to learn more from you. That was really well done. Thanks, Mark.
Stick around. You want to stick around? You'll see mine next.
Yeah,
it's organized.
Thanks, Mark.
Okay, John, we have probably about 20 minutes. Is that going to give you enough time, John?
Oh, yeah, lots of time. I'll probably have time left over.
You're on.
That's how organized I am. All right, there's my little guy here. I got one arm already on. I'm going to show you how I put the other arm on. Let's see, I'll move the camera down here. Okay. Like that. All right, you check it out. All righty. What I do, how I attach the arm, I'll take his head off here. What I do, I flatten on this side and I flatten the arm so it has a nice fit. And why I pin it, because if you, most time when you glue them together, it's really slippery. So what I do is I pin it, use a little dowel here. What I do is I carve the arm out exactly where I want it. This is how I want it, like this. And I put a reference mark here, pencil mark. Right there, that's where I want the arm to be. So I got that right, like set up. That's where I want the arm. What I do, I'll take my drill here and I'll drill a little hole about in the thicker part of the arm, about just over 1/8 of an inch deep. Okay. And then I'll take a dowel and I'll stick that in there and I'll run a pencil mark around it. Okay, I know where that pencil mark is here. And then I sharpen that point. Nice little point. And then I'll cut that off. About there. Hopefully I don't lose it. Yeah, I still got it. I'll put that tip in the arm. Like that. And I'll come over top of the carving here and I know where my reference mark is. And right about there. So I'll push in. Now I know where my dowel mark is, where it's going to be. So I push it right in, make a little mark. So now I take my drill again. Drill that in. Take that little point one out. Take him out. And cut another one. Oop, lost that one. Oh, there it is. Maybe a little longer. Put that one in there. And take my arm, might be too long. Oh, yeah, it's a little too long. And oop, it didn't work out right. Oop, just broke off. The tip broke off, right back. Gotta re-drill it a second. New dowel there. A rough time here, people.
Take your time.
Yeah. And you put it back on. And it lines back up. And you glue it on. Once you glue it on and clamp it, like I have a little clamper, I clamp that all on. Once it's all clamped, then you have to reshape it to the body. So this is when I take my knife here and clean that up towards the body here. shape it up here. So hide that line again. That line, the arm. And that's basically it. And just shape the arm to fit the body. So when I put this arm on, it wasn't completely carved to the body. So now I've got to shape it to match the body.
John, I guess I'll just mention, like, the nice thing about what John Paul's showing us here is that before you dowel and glue the arm to the body, you have all kinds of opportunity to carve the inside of the arm, which is often a difficult thing to do if you're not following the procedure John's showing us here.
And then I want to do the collar. A lot of times for this little elf here, I got the collar. I want that collar to go over top of the arm there like that. So then I'll curve that right on. So this guy's going to be decorating a Christmas tree. So he's going to be holding an ornament, this little elf. Yeah. Let's take some more off in here.
So John, as you're doing that, it's probably worthwhile having people understand, like, you have the arms fairly down in these, but if the arm was out at a bit of an angle, you'd use the same process, right? It's just right. That you'd still use the doweling and the gluing on and all the rest.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, the doweling is more or less to hold it in place while the glue sets. And then you finish up the body here. That's where I smoothed it out. And now I want to clean that up. Yeah, it's looking pretty good now. And I could put some more wrinkles in later, and that's basically it right there. And once that other arm's in, I'll do the same. Once I glue it all in, I'll carve it back, finish it off, and then I got to finish up his head, finish up his. And he'd be holding an ornament in his hand here, and the other hand will have an ornament too. They'd be hanging ornaments on a tree. So that's basically it. Just use your the little dowel as to pin it in to show where you can mark it on the arm. Use that like a pin, a sharp pin. Drill it and throw another dowel on it and mark it where we had it before, the little pencil mark, and then clamp it and carve it. Finish it up. That's my presentation.
I have a question on the gluing.
Yep.
You notch the dowel a little bit so the glue kind of gets in there a bit to hold that joint tighter.
I glue this dowel into here.
Yeah.
And I put some glue into here, into that hole.
You put a little notch in the dowel?
No, I don't.
On the surface where the two surfaces are meeting there, do you rough that up at all, or do you just leave it?
Perfectly smooth.
Okay.
So you don't want any seam to show, right? You don't want any gap.
I was just wondering if you needed to sort of allow the glue to go into a crack on both surfaces just to secure it a bit more.
No, I've never had that problem or nothing like that. I just
Tom's asking a good question though. Like it's an interesting question. So, John, before John, just pull your arm off there, the doweled arm, get it underneath the camera where people see it. Like that's a very, very shiny, smooth surface. And so he's got two perfectly mating pieces that are going to glue together really nice and tight once you clamp it. And even clamping it with a piece of masking tape is going to get it close enough. Tom, what I've always found is with basswood in particular, is the white carpenter's glue or cabinet maker's glue actually wets it so much that the glue absorbs into both mating surfaces. So you don't have to rough it up. It's absorbing right into the wood. And in fact, if John were ever to break one of those arms, it'd break at a spot other than the glued spot. That's how strong.
For sure. Sure.
Thank you.
What is the diameter of the dowel?
What was the question?
What is the diameter of the dowel that you're using?
This is bamboo skewers. Just a little, it's probably just over an eighth.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, just bamboo skewers from the dollar store.
I was just going to mention that when you do the arms separately, it makes it a whole lot stronger because then you can work with the grain a lot better than just the way the grain runs on the main body.
For
Correct?
sure. Yep.
Thank you, John. Any other questions for John? Really good job, John. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
Murray, why don't you say a couple words about the Niagara show and what we've got planned for our tables?
The Niagara show is going to be in a much larger facility than they've had before. It's going to be an arena from the sounds of it, and it's going to take a long time to set up. This is something they've not experienced before. So as they set it up, it's going to happen in the afternoon after the tables and chairs and stuff are delivered. And we can start setting up our things on the Friday evening, I believe, or Saturday morning early. So it's going to be the first time for Niagara Falls group to be able to come together since the COVID times. So it's a BC and AC, before COVID and after COVID. I think it's going to be a great show.
So Murray, you've got a table for the OWCA, and you've also sponsored us with a TNCC table.
Great.
And so we're going to join you there Saturday morning and Sunday for sure. Dave Wilson, Dave, I think you're still planning to join us at the TNCC table. Is that correct?
Yes, I am. I've got a bit of a cold, so hopefully it'll be done by then.
We'll all wear masks. Great. I think it's going to be a great show. I'm really looking forward to that as well. So it's great that Dave's going to be there. If anybody's on this call tonight is going to be in the Niagara region or doesn't mind coming down to the Niagara region for a couple of days, it is going to be a great show. It's a great opportunity to enter some of the beautiful carvings people have been showing us here. Or just to visit. And if you want to bring some carvings down and display at the TNCC table, Dave Wilson and I will have plenty of room we'll make for you, okay? So on tips and tricks, I don't think we talked about this one. Baz was talking to us about some epoxy that he used down in the States to modify some of the wood that he was using in a sculpture that he was doing, a carving he was doing, and we were wondering if it is available in Canada, and he found this. So you can take a look at that as well as me, and if you're interested in that, I think you'll be able to find that on Amazon or something like that. So epoxy sculpt. The other thing I wanted to mention on tips and tricks, Dave, is you had sent this to Lee Baldwin, because Lee showed us in a previous a Zoom call how he took multiple cuts to with a regular saw to get the contour of the rough out. And you had used this process in the past. So I've got 2 slides here. Why don't you just talk about it for a minute, Dave?
Yeah, when I first started carving, I didn't have a bandsaw either, so I tried this method and it worked quite well. Now you only have to, when you put your pattern on, it's best to have a piece of wood a little bit bigger than the pattern, so that when you cut down on the edges, that you don't cut the outside carving right off. So cut right down to the bottom on all 4, like front side, the back side, and then rotate it 90 degrees and then cut the other pattern out. And once you got them all down to the bottom of the carving, then just cut it off like that picture shows there. And then you can just peel those pieces off, or you can leave the bottom part on there so you can put it right into a vise to hold it if you want to. So, and then it turns out like the carving on the picture on the right. Works quite well.
Very nice.
Yeah, good idea.
The other thing, because you're cutting end grain, it's best to have a coarse tooth blade in your socks, because it's a little bit harder to work with.
Very good. Thanks for that, Dave. Okay, folks, and I think that's coming up to our time slot here. So thanks to John Paul, for showing us all about attaching arms. Mark Stolbert to talk about his carvings and how he goes about designing and carving the face. I learned a lot tonight, so thank you very much to both of you guys.
You're welcome. It was fun.
So everybody have a great month of carving. You know, John's given us another idea here. Give this notion about attaching arms and legs to your carving a try prior to our next show. And again, next Zoom call rather. And again, if you can make it to the Niagara show, it'd be great to see you. And if you can bring a few carvings along to display, it would really help us promote the True North Caricature Carvers. So thank you, everyone. And have a great night tonight, and we'll see you in a month's time.